Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast, the podcast where I have the pleasure of simplifying the marketing and the mindset so you, the chiropractor, can increase your income, your impact, and your enjoyment in practice too. In today's episode, we're going to do a deep dive into community building. Now, here's what we'll cover. We'll talk about why building a community can help you accelerate you towards your practice goals. First of all, I need to define what I mean by community. And then I'm going to share with you the two different distinct groups that exist inside your community, and we need to treat these in different ways. We'll discuss strategies for building a community, and then we're going to finish up with what are the next best steps for you to go forwards. Now, the great thing about marketing is when it's used effectively, really what it's all about is about building community. And if you're seeing marketing as just a tool to bring in new patients, then you're missing a huge component of the power of marketing, whether that be social media, whether it be events that you're running inside your practice, marketing in general. So let's start by clarifying what is it that I mean when I'm talking about community, because sometimes we might use a word like tribe. There's a group of us that comes together there too, but here's what I mean throughout this episode and in episodes going forwards there too. A community in the context of our chiropractic practices is not merely just a collection of individuals who are coming to see us for an adjustment. It can be and should be a vibrant, interconnected network of patients, of staff, and even the wider public, bound together by shared values, trust, and the mutual goal for better health and well-being. Okay, let me say that last little bit there as well too. It's a vibrant, interconnected network of patient, staff, and wider public, bound together by shared values, trust, and the mutual goal of better health and well-being. In essence, our community in around our practice consists of advocates, champions, friends who collectively enrich the practice both professionally and personally. Now, we can think inside of this community, we can put the people inside the community into two different buckets, all right? One of those are patients, okay? Now, hopefully this is a large portion of your community, but it won't be the largest portion of it. The other portion of your community or the other bucket is people who aren't patients yet, okay? I want you to look at the world almost that way, people who are patients and people who aren't patients yet. Now, to the extent that you are building a community of those two groups there as well, this will be the extent that your practice will thrive. Now, particularly when you build a community of people who aren't patients yet, this is the pipeline or the funnel that will have a predictable flow of new patients to you. This is those people that are beginning to know you, like you, and trust you. They're moving their way into a community. Now, we're going to break this episode into two parts. In today's part, we're going to be talking about building and fostering community with those people that are already patients. So this is where we start in many ways, foster that warmer relationship, build a relationship in around shared values and mission, move it beyond just our practice. And in a later episode, I'll talk about community building activities for those patients that aren't just, or those people that aren't patients just yet as well. So why is it important? We've touched on this a little bit to begin with, but the concept of building a community has evolved from a buzzword, which it used to be, a couple of decades ago, to now I think it is a business imperative, particularly for us in chiropractic. Any industry where there might be trust issues, and there is in healthcare particularly, and with us as chiropractors, trust is lower than what it ought to be given the beautiful work that we do, how safe we are, how effective that we are. But when there are trust issues, then building a community is essential as well. Now, the importance of community isn't just sentimental though, it's a really important lever for us to pull from a business point of view. Statistics reveal that the probability of an existing satisfied customer referring is quite high. Like 83% of people say, yeah, I'd be happy to refer. However, only 29% of those do it, okay? Now, if we want to increase the number of people that are referring to us, then building a community and fostering a community will help to improve referrals. It'll also help to increase retention. So Steve Jobs had this quote when he was talking about product development. He says, you've got to start with the customer experience first, and then you work backwards to the technology, not the other way around, okay? So in a chiropractic context, a vibrant community enhances the patient experience. It helps them to get better results. It helps them stay around longer, and fosters this feeling of both trust and retention. So The two major business levers that we want to be pulling in terms of referrals and retention are both enhanced in a major way by us building community, okay? Building a community, though, however, is not just about business metrics in terms of retention and referrals. It also is all about fulfillment, particularly fulfillment for you as the practitioner who has to spend all of the time there as well. It comes from creating an environment in your practice where your values get to thrive, okay? This, again, especially true for us as chiropractors, where our services have a direct impact on people's health there too. So Simon Sinek has a quote I'm sure many of you have heard. He says, people don't buy what you do, but they buy why you do it. So when we build a community in around our why, it not only boosts our practice commercially for the reasons I said beforehand, but adds this deep level of personal meaning and satisfaction for you and your staff and the people that are coming along. Let's get into the nitty-gritties of what are some of the strategic tactical things that we do to start to foster a community. Now, I think the first one, before I even get into the 7 things I'm going to share with you, is this is not just something that you build a community tomorrow. There are things that we can do, quickly to make changes in our practice. There are policies, there are systems that we can implement. But in terms of creating a community, you really need to see this is something that we start to roll out over this next 12 months and beyond as well. Okay, so it does start with this. As I mentioned that Simon Sinek quote beforehand, people don't buy what you do, but they buy why you do it. We have to begin with a mission and a vision that's beyond just the 4 walls of your practice, beyond just your income, which is why so often on the podcast here I'm talking about impact as well. A community is built in around impact, not just income. So a well-articulated mission and vision is literally magnetic. It's your magnetic north for your practice and for your community. Now, some of you will have a really good understanding of what this is, and some of you will be confused and overwhelmed. And perhaps in another episode, I'll dive a little bit deeper into the idea of clarifying your vision, your mission as well, getting some better understanding of your why. But it can really just start with this. Hold a brainstorming session with your team to identify the core values and objectives. Why does your practice exist? Why are you doing what you're doing? Okay, so you could use tools like a vision board, mission statement generator. There are plenty of tools online that will help you with this. And again, I think as I'm saying this out loud, I'll create an episode for you in the coming episodes that will help with this. So first step is clarify your mission, because that's your North Star when it comes to building a community. Now, the second thing is I know plenty of chiropractors who have a really strong vision and mission. However, they don't share it. Okay, it's tucked away. Either they haven't shared it with the staff or the staff know it, but they don't know how to communicate it as well. So a vision that's tucked away is absolutely of no value to you at all, and certainly won't allow you to build a community. So your vision should be the lifeblood of your practice communication. This means it's woven into everywhere from, there are elements of it that happen with how we answer the phone to how we communicate with our patients. Our front desk are looking for opportunities to communicate what your vision and your mission is. It should be on your website. It should be a part of the new patient visits, letting people know, what is the possibility that exists for them and their family when people come to see us. This means you're going to need to train as a team to look for opportunities to be sharing your vision. Again, there is no boundaries to where you should be sharing it. Social media, online, offline, with patients, you name it from there. We want to be shouting our vision, our mission from the mountaintops. We want to be looking in terms of the third thing to be thinking about here is how do we facilitate patient relationships, okay? So what do I mean by this? Well, community thrives on relationships, not just between you and the peeps, but between the patients themselves and those people that aren't patients just yet. It's not just if you have to be involved in all of the relationships, then you're putting the brakes on and limiting what the community can achieve. So you want to be going out of your way to see if you can foster relationships between the people inside of your community. Now, this could be things like a special Facebook group exclusively for your patients where they can share tips, ask questions. It could be a common area in your practice where patients can naturally interact, have a cup of tea, a coffee, something to eat as well. You want to be looking for opportunities to connect patients with similar interests. This is something that we went out of our way in our practice to do, is to introduce people. Like we noticed in our practice that people tended to come in for their adjustments at similar times of the day and of the week. So, the Tuesday 8:30 in the morning people was different from the Thursday 8:30 in the morning people. We wanted these people to get to know each other. It was another relationship inside of there. In fact, I always had a goal that I wanted two people in my practice to meet and then one day get married. It never happened. Well, it hasn't happened yet. But I did have a lot of really strong friendships that started from inside of my practice where I was the common bond. So you want to be looking for opportunities where you can build and foster those relationships between people in your community, not just between you and them as well. Now, one of the ways that you can do this, on to point number 4 here, is by hosting external events, okay? So taking the community beyond the 4 walls of your practice adds a new dynamic, and it can really add a depth to relationship. Now, I've spoken previously about a concept called the 0 moment of truth. This was a bunch of the team from Google did this when they were looking at what does it really take to build deep connection, and they were looking at under the realm of to have somebody want to make a buying decision. Now, first of all, they went through how many bits of contact, so how long did it take, how many bits of contact, and inside of that, one of the things they talked about was location. And they talked about 4 different locations. So if the relationship happened over 4 different places, it was a deeper relationship. So rather than wanting to just be interacting with our patients and potential patients just on social media, there too, if we can get an email address, if we can see them on Facebook and Instagram and our website, the more locations, the better. And so if we're seeing our patients out in the community, I'm going to talk about that in a moment, but if we're hosting events and they're coming along to events outside the 4 walls of the practice, this deepens the relationship, the connection literally, the neural connection that we have, and it helps to foster a stronger sense of community. So there is some benefits for why you might want to have these events literally outside of your practice as well. But workshops are great for this, okay? And again, they could certainly be in your practice, but outside the realm of your adjusting times. Maybe it's a yoga class, a social event. And again, this doesn't have to be, sometimes we get really stuck in thinking that this has to only be, in around, our health-related stuff or in around kind of spine and nervous system. Over the years in our practice, we've had, the weirdest, wonderful things, speakers come in. Coming to mind at the moment, we had a laughter yoga where we got a group of sort of 25 of us together, and this class was taught all about just laughing. Now, I was super skeptical going in, but it was one of the most brilliant 60 minutes of my life. And once we all let go, we laughed and had a hoot of a time. I had a client who I'm working with at the moment who put together an event which was all about blokes, beer, and breath work. Now, he is trying to foster a community in there that shares their values. That's all that's important when you're thinking about these sorts of events, is what are the values, what's the practice ethos, and how do we share that? We want to look for opportunities to acknowledge your tribe, acknowledge the community, okay? So small tokens of appreciation go a long way. It makes people feel valued and seen. Now, I don't want you to underestimate the power of making our patients feel seen. In fact, as human beings, it's one of the strongest drives that we have in relationship is to feel seen. Now, according to the US Business Association, okay, and their Chamber of Commerce there, 68% of customers leave a business because they feel it's indifferent to them. Now, what they mean by indifferent is that they don't feel seen there any longer. Now, I've no reason to think that this isn't similar for our patients, that there's not a significant number of them that are leaving because they don't feel seen, they don't feel important, they don't feel valued for you. So imagine the impact on a practice like ours where relationships are not just transactional, but they're part of a community. Okay, this is what happens. Now, one of the ways that we can do this is by just acknowledging people. Now, this might look like remembering people's names and what's important to them, the littlest things. This is something that I made a real effort on over my 20 years of practice. Not only did I want to know your name, but what was important. What football team did you follow there too? What work did you do? What were your children's names? What were your hobbies? Anytime that you gave me this little nugget of information, some of it I was very great at remembering, but I always wrote it down. I had notes on my card there about what was important to this person. And this is active listening, which is, listening to the patient, mirroring back what they said, using exactly the same words there too. Don't make them wrong. Active listening is a great skill too. Eye contact, making good eye contact, not creepy eye contact, but good eye contact with people is another way to acknowledge people. Follow up, doing things that you say you're going to be. Now, this could be follow up with a text message after, we're going to talk about important dates in a moment, but, follow up with an email, exercises, advice that you've given there too, but just simply doing what you say you're going to be doing. looking for opportunities to acknowledge special occasions. This could be birthdays or anniversaries, small wins, somebody getting a job promotion. I always love to celebrate those things. I was talking with a patient, how's things at work? Great, got a promotion. Write them a card, send them some flowers, do something nice for them to acknowledge that as well. Now, you can use your front desk system to help with all of this stuff. This doesn't have to be just memory management, but the more that you can scale, because a lot of what I'm talking about here to some extent is empathy. And the more that you can scale this empathy to really connect with people too, the stronger the community that you build as well. Now, what you want to do also, onto tip number 6 here, is be present in the broader community as well, okay? So your practice doesn't want to exist just in isolation. When we're out in the broader community, the broader town, our area there too, it starts to expand your network. There's a level of visibility that comes from it. So we could do this by sponsoring school events, local sports teams. Now, we don't do this for the logo placement. We don't do it for that sort of thing. We do this as a genuine supporter, okay? We need to be investing back into the community. So you want to look at who are the people in my community, my practice community there, what other things are important to them, and how can I invest into that? Different groups, find us religious groups, church groups, sporting groups, hobbies, those sort of things as well. It could be just volunteering at different events that are going on, school functions, those sort of things. Now, the final one I want to leave you with here is I want to talk to you about building community through engaging content. So social media content, those sort of things there too, okay? High quality content not only adds to your community, but also serves as a really valuable touch point for your practice, and it keeps you at the forefront of people's minds. So we want to be omnipresent if we possibly can. When we continually create content that addresses concerns, celebrates milestones, educates, when we're letting people know that we're here to help and that we understand them, this is important for building community as well. Now, it could be just an educational blog. I've got a great community influencer member at the moment who's really not into making videos, but she loves writing and she's turning lots of our content, instead of shooting the videos, just into blogs, and it will work fantastic for her as well. So, again, different range of topics, but what are the topics that are important to your peeps as well? Sharing practice testimonials, if you're allowed to do that as well. Real stories from real people about the great things that you do and about the impact that the community has should be something that you're sharing also. Video tutorials, okay? Simple, at-home exercises, behind the scenes. Of course, let people see behind the scenes, but helpful content that's going to help people in your community get closer to their health goals. If you're into a podcast, you could do that as well. And it could be something as simple as a monthly newsletter that you put out, an email newsletter that's a roundup of all of your content, practice news, content that you've shared that month. Again, practice member of the month, these sort of things there too, that just keeps people engaged in what's happening. So they're different ways that you can think about it. Let's sum all of this up, okay? Today, we've talked about the immense power of community, particularly focusing on our existing patients, all right? In the coming episodes, I'll talk about some of the subtle differences that we take when we're wanting to build community with people who aren't patients just yet as well. So we've talked about, importantly, community is not just a buzzword, okay? It's not just a part of a good book title, Tribe from Seth Godin. That community is literally a vital business strategy that will help you really push your mission out. It'll improve retention, referrals, but as I mentioned, most importantly, what it does is it makes our practices more enjoyable and way more fulfilling because we're doing work that's really important to us. Now, with regards to what next, I want you to think back to those 7 tips that I went through beforehand in terms of ways for us to build community. Let me quickly kind of summarize those again for you here. The first is we need to clarify our mission. Second is we need to share our mission. The third is facilitate patient relationships between our patients. Number 4, host external events. Number 5, look for opportunities to acknowledge your tribe and your community. 6, be present in the broader community. And 7, create content that acts as a touch point in between when people are seeing you. For many of you, there will be some low-hanging fruit, like, great, I'm going to start here. Where you start is not important. However, if you don't have real clarity in around your vision, your mission, your why, that is where I'm going to suggest that you start, because community, that's your North Star. And without a North Star, the rest of it's going to have a really hard time lining up as well. So think back through those 7 strategies, pick a place to start, and that's where you want to go, okay? Now, Be sure to keep an eye out for part 2, when I will go through the separate strategies and the subtleties of building community from those people that aren't patients just yet. As always, folks, thanks for all that you do. Keep saving lives. I'll see you back here next week. Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.